On the place in a conflict zone in Africa, two soldiers are standing behind rocks, and one of them wonders where the anti-government forces got their weapons from. The scene changes to another soldier who is dying, and a comrade helps him while they discuss whether to retreat or not. Suddenly, the voice is heard from the person coming from behind. It was none other than 5th Squad Captain Hazuma Ryuji. He says that he will lead the attack and moves to hide behind a stone. He observes the enemy forces and plans a surprise attack on 3 soldiers behind a boulder and 1 behind a tree. He punches the first soldier and then knocks out the second and third soldiers. With his martial arts skills, he then points his gun at the 4th soldier and shoots him in the head. After completing the subjugation, he stands behind the beaten soldiers and says, "Mission accomplished." After tying up the soldiers to a nearby tree, he questioned one of them about the enemy corpses. The soldier reported that they had disposed of them, to which Hazuma nodded in approval. When the soldier mentioned that their base was located on the other side of the forest, Hazuma assured them that they would complete their reconnaissance before the day was over. As they made their way through the forest, the soldiers expressed their admiration for Hazuma's leadership skills. One soldier even calmed down, and on his language proficiency and his reputation as the modern era's strongest. Hazuma acknowledged the praise but emphasized that his success was due to the courage and strength of his team. As they walked on, another soldier remarked that they had expected Japanese people to be weak and pacifistic, but the other soldier corrected him, citing Hazuma's nickname as proof of his exceptional strength and intellect. Hazuma overheard their conversation and paused to set the record straight. He admitted that he was afraid of dying, but had made a calculated judgment based on the situation at hand. With their destination in sight, Hazuma reminded his team to stay alert as they neared their target. Hazuma stops his movement as he found fog everywhere. He looks around and asks, "What happened?" Suddenly, he notices something and says, "What is this?" and asks, "Where am I?" Hazuma discovers that he is at the entrance of a cave and he is all alone. Then he asks in amazement and shock, "A cave? Was there a place like this nearby? I should check the map." Suddenly, an unknown voice says, "Welcome, hero from another world." Hazuma gets defensive and says, "Who's there? Are you from the anti-government forces?" He reaches for his gun but is astonished to find out that he has no equipment left except for his knife. The voice says, "Don't worry. I'm the heavenly voice that will guide you." The voice then displays Hazuma's data on a hologram screen, including his name, race, job, level, combat, and HP. Hazuma exclaims in disbelief, "My body's data? How is it floating in midair? Am I going crazy?" The voice replies, "It's completely normal in this world. And it's like games in your world, isn't it?" Hazuma says, "I don't know. I haven't played any games and I've never had that sort of luxury." The heavenly voice asks, "Then are you familiar with the words summoned to another world?" Hazuma responds with a no. Suddenly, a person's voice is heard and Hazuma tells the heavenly voice to be quiet. He sees that there are people down the cliff who are fighting a dragon. They are using magic and their hologram screens display their stats. Hazuma judges their attack methods and tells them to target the dragon's abdomen instead. They respond by saying, "It's too dangerous to get near the monster." Hazuma then offers to help defeat the dragon, but they are concerned as he's only level 2. He assures them that it's not a problem. A dragon roared loudly and attacked Hazuma. But Hazuma, being quick on his feet, dodged the attack and planned to strike from behind to avoid the dragon's poisonous fangs. However, the dragon was wise to this tactic and blocked Hazuma's attack with its hard tail. Hazuma dodged the dragon's counterattack and remarked, "As long as I don't get hit, it's fine." Suddenly, the dragon hit Hazuma with its head, sending him flying through the air. One person assumed that Hazuma was defeated, but another our person said to wait and see what happens, to everyone's surprise. Hazuma landed safely on the ground and exclaimed, "Unbelievable, this guy." Hazuma realized that the dragon was forced to go on a rampage, perhaps to shake him off, and took advantage of its weakness by taking out his knife and moving towards the dragon's defenseless abdomen. He stabbed the dragon with his knife, causing blood to spread everywhere, and a stack of sand flies up into the air. When the dust settled, the dragon was lying on the ground, bleeding, and Hazuma stood next to it with a bloodied knife. One person exclaimed, "He defeated the monster with only a knife," and another person said, "No way," curious about who Hazuma was. The person asked him, "Hey you, who are you?" Hazuma simply replied, "I'm just a soldier." As Hazuma defeated the dragon, a golden coin mysteriously appeared and fell onto the ground. Curious, he picked it up and examined it. Suddenly, an unknown voice echoed and informed him that his maximum HP and MP had increased. As he looked at his Huram screen, he saw the values change before his eyes. One of the magical persons he saved thanked him, but questioned his identity since he didn't seem like a soldier from their kingdom's army. To avoid confusion, Hazuma simply explained that he aerial rescue operations to save human lives, impressed by his strength. The person invited him to join their group. However, some others were hesitant and questioned his abilities. The group soon faced monsters and fought them off with the help of Hazuma's skills, impressed by his performance. The first person complimented him and called him a lifesaver. They also warned him about the danger of the dungeon, which was ranked as D rank. Hazuma was confused about the rank, but the group explained in that dungeons were classified from E rank to S rank. Although the monsters they encountered were usually found in C-rank dungeons, they reassured Hazuma that it was not uncommon. Hazuma nods as he listens to the first person's explanation of dungeons. He understands that adventurers collect dropped items from monsters that they defeat. The item in his hand must be one of those items. The first person notices that Hazuma is holding a weapon summoning item, which can summon weapons that the user has used in the past. Hazuma thinks that it is a convenient and useful item and wants to keep it. The first person agrees and praises Hazuma for defeating the lizard monster. However, another person insults Hazuma, saying that no adventurer would be thankful for receiving such an insignificant item. Hazuma ignores him and thinks to himself that adventurers mainly use magic, and there is probably no weapon for them to summon. The weapon summoning item can become his trump card. Suddenly, a snake monster appears, and Hazuma and the magical people defeat it, causing Hazuma's level to increase with an increase in his maximum MP and HP. Hazuma hears a heavenly voice and ignores it. The group arrives at a vast open ground, and it is night time. The other person thinks that the exit should be close by, but Hazuma notices something and warns everyone to run and watch above themselves. But everyone gets confused by sudden message of Hazuma, and suddenly a mighty dragon falls from the sky and everyone is terrified. The group wonders why there is a dragon in a D-rank dungeon. One of the magical persons gets scared and tries to run away when they see a dragon. Hazuma tries to stop him, but the dragon shakes the cliff and blocks the exit with rocks. Everyone gets scared and confused about how they will leave. The first person suggests a tiny hole at the top of a small cliff as the only option to leave. Another person questions how they will get over there. The first person suggests attacking the dragon with their magic. To make it move so they can escape, all of them why to attack the dragon with their magic? But it has no effect. Hazuma gets confused, and the person tells him that the dragon is preparing to do a magic roar. They quickly run away, but they don't know where to escape. The dragon shoots a massive beam of fire from its mouth, and everyone thinks they are going to die. However, Hazuma is impressed by the dragon's power and exterior, which is tough like a tank. He notices a scratch on the dragon's abdomen and wonders if he can test it out a little bit. Hazuma walks towards the dragon, and the other person asks him what he is planning to do. Hazuma says there's something he wants to try and hides behind a rock. Suddenly, he throws a knife towards the dragon's scar, making a wider scratch. The person doubts if a knife can defeat a dragon. Hazuma watches the dragon, and then thinks that the condition to defeating it is to use physical attacks instead of magic, since magic attacks are ineffective. He addresses everyone and asks them to cooperate with him. To defeat the dragon, the first person thinks it's impossible for Hazuma to defeat it alone. But he realizes that if they don't do something, they won't survive. Everyone agrees to follow Hazuma's orders. He tells them not to worry and that the odds of the gamble are not so bad. He orders them to divert the dragon's attention while he tries to find its weak point. The magical person starts diverting the dragon's attention and attacking it from the front. Everyone wonders where Hazuma is, thinking that he ran away and made them bait. However, Hazuma is using a coin that transforms into an anti-material rifle, which he uses to shoot the dragon's weak point. The dragon falls to the ground, and everyone is shocked. The first person says, the dragon, he defeated the dragon. After the dragon was defeated, a massive stack of coins fell on the ground, and everyone was thrilled to see such a large number of items drop. Their levels were raised, and they all passed through a tiny hole over the cliff. Suddenly, Hazuma noticed a child's shoe and wondered why it was there. One person praised Hazuma for defeating the dragon and suggested he join their party. But Hazuma ignored the question and asked whose shoe it was. It turned out that the shoe probably belonged to one of the missing children they had been searching for. They explained to Hazuma that they had received a search request to find the missing children. However, in the midst of the search, one of their members was abducted and they assumed the children were taken by goblins. Despite their fear, Hazuma pressed them for details and learned that they had abandoned the quest and left their comrade behind to escape the dungeon. One person explained that the dungeon was full of monsters that weren't supple, said to be in a D-ranked dungeon, and that the Adventurers Guild examination for assigning the rank was probably done carelessly. They said that individually, goblins weren't much of a threat, but they were extremely dangerous in large groups. Furthermore, the goblins had taken a hostage to lure them in, which meant that their den was nearby. They believed that they couldn't manage the goblins with their current skills or means. Hazuma listened to them carefully but refused to turn back. He explained that one should avoid being reckless, but their decision wasn't enough for him to abandon the quest. He asked if there was a weapon summoning among the coins, but they said there were only pieces of treasure and precious stones. He then moved forward, and the others felt ashamed as they pointed in different directions. The scene changed to where the missing children were tied to a wooden thing, crying and surrounded by goblins. There was also a lady tied with kids. She encouraged the kids not to give up. And suddenly something flashed from the body of Goblin, and one goblin was killed. And Hazuma was standing next to dead Goblin, holding a knife covered in blood. The children were shocked to see a dead goblin, and the other goblins noticed Hazuma. He took his fighting position and challenged them to come at high. Hazuma stood in front of a group of goblins who were closing in on him. Without wasting a moment, he took out his knife and leaped towards the goblins. He began slashing at their bodies with furious speed, moving from one goblin to another. With each blow, he killed them instantly. As he made his way through the group of goblins, he finally reached the place where the kids and girls were being held captive. With swift movements, he rescued them from their ropes. The girl among them looked at Asuma and asked, "Who are you?" Hazuma replied, "I heard about your situation from your comrades." The girl then asked if everyone was okay, to which Hazuma replied that they needed to focus on getting out first. One of the kids said, "There's a lot of them, how bothersome." The girl expressed her frustration, wishing she had her sword with her to help fight, but Hazuma informed her that they had no option but to make do with what they had at the moment. He then flashed back to the goblins and he began attacking them. With his knife again, despite his efforts, the goblins kept coming. Hazuma shouted, "There's no end to them. The knife has become useless after being stained with all this blood too." Suddenly, a goblin went to attack the kids, but Hazuma quickly stepped in and blocked the attack. He kicked the goblin in the face, and the girl asked if he was okay. Hazuma responded, "My dominant arm is fine. I can continue fighting." The girl insisted on helping fight as well, but Hazuma prioritized the safety of the civilians and told her to run away as fast as she could. He planned to distract the enemies while they escaped. As he faced the group of goblins again, he realized it would take a lot of stamina to defeat them. He thought to himself, "It will take a lot of stamina to defeat them. Let's see what lasts longer. My stamina or your numbers." Suddenly, a voice was heard from behind him. The magic people had arrived, and one of them shouted, "Cover your body in magic P." Hazuma was surprised and asked why they were there. One of the people responded, "We would have an uneasy conscience if we were to just leave you here." The girl explained that the goblins had clad themselves in magic power, which enhanced their physical abilities. Hazuma understood. So that's how they move so agilely, huh? But for me, that kind of thing is. Before he could finish his thought, a heavenly voice interrupted him. "It's entirely possible. Please take a good look at your stats window. You can see something called MP, right? MP means magic points. It represents the amount of magic power you have available." Suddenly, Hazuma said, "Got it." Red flames gathered around him. He summoned his magic power. Goblins noticed him and tried to attack, but Hazuma moved with lightning-fast speed and decapitated two goblins in an instant. The girl next to him was amazed and exclaimed, "Wow! He understood how to use magic power in an instant." Hazuma was coated in red flames and was standing right in front of the goblins, but suddenly, the goblins backed up and the Goblin King emerged from the cave. The Goblin King was furious with his gigantic body, and one of the magic persons said, "The Goblin King, run away. After all, we are no match for Dash." But Hazuma cut him off and said, "No, it's no problem." The Goblin King attacked Hazuma, but he dodged his attack and punched him with full strength and speed in his stomach. In a split second, the Goblin King fell to the ground and was defeated. Everyone, including the girl and the other goblins, was shocked to see how easily he defeated the Goblin King. The goblins were afraid, and Hazuma took back the girl's sword from the Goblin King and returned it to her. The girl said, "Yes, thank you very much." The two kids moved towards Hazuma saying, "Big brother, amazing. You're cool. You know what?" Hazuma put his hand in the kid's hair and said, "We were able to bear with all this because the big sister said that help would definitely come." Meanwhile, the girl was thinking, "Unbelievable, to defeat the Goblin King unarmed. Who on earth are you?" After the Goblin King's defeat, all the goblins began to die, and their souls flew into the air as they died. Some items were left behind on the ground, and the magic people were very happy to see them. One of the magic people was healing Hazuma's hand. While they collected the items, afterward, they decided to go back to the village. When they arrived, the parents of the little kids who had entered the village hugged them, and they started bowing and thanking the magic guys. But the magic POP said that it was Hazuma who should be thanked. They separated the items they got from the last fight, and one guy asked Hazuma, "Isn't Hazuma's share less?" But Hazuma said it was good. The guy insisted that because of Hazuma, they had survived, so he should take on more of the share. Hazuma gladly accepted. Hazuma then said goodbye to the magic persons and asked the girl, whom he rescued earlier from the goblins, if there was a place where he could exchange these items for money. The girl replied that he would have to go to the Adventurers Guild for that, and she pointed towards the far mountain and said, "The closest one from here is located at the dungeon city of Redom across those mountains, I think." Hazuma said, "Got it, thanks." The girl quickly replied, "Are you planning on walking there? That's too reckless," Hazuma said. "But I don't have any money on me, so I have to." The girl then suggested they ride a carriage, and said it was her way of thanking him for saving her. Hazuma agreed, and they took a carriage. At night, they visited a hotel, and the girl booked a room for 2 people for the night. The old hotel desk person asked, "Are you two traveling as a married couple?" They both looked in different directions, and the girl replied in frustration, "You are mistaken. We are not in that kind of..." He took pause and said, "Anyway, we will take 2 rooms, please." Hazuma reached his room, and before leaving, the girl said, "I think we will arrive at Redom tomorrow. Good night." Hazuma said yeah and got into his bed. Hazuma talked with his own self and said, so-called heavenly voice, "You are right." Suddenly, the heavenly voice spoke, "Yes, I am." "What is it?" Hazuma gently got up from his bed and said, "There's one thing I would like to ask right now." The heavenly voice said, "What is it?" And Hazuma asked, "Can I go back to my original world?" The heavenly voice replied, "It is possible. There are 10 places in this world that could take you back. However, you cannot get there unless you conquer a Mythic C rank dungeon." Hazuma remembered the Mythic rank was special and said, "Got it." The heavenly voice said, Is that it? Even if I were not to answer them, you could have at least tried to give more questions a shot." Hazuma replied, "I'm trying to go to sleep, be quiet." The next day, they left, and after some time, they reached the dungeon city of Redom as Hazuma and Faria enter the bustling city of Redom. Hazuma remarks on the diversity of the population. "What's more, there are many different races here." Faria, exasperated, reminds Hazuma to call her by her name, that was Faria. Hazuma thinks to himself about Faria's reluctance to reveal her family name. Why won't she reveal her family name? Is there some kind of odd circumstance I'm unaware of? But he brushes the thought aside and calls her by her name. Well then, Faria. As they walk towards the Adventurers Guild, Faria explains is an organization that provides support for adventurers. She explains that they offer a range of services, including quest referrals, certification of adventurer and ranks, and weapon lending. She also mentions that the Adventurers Guild is a powerful organization that extends beyond the borders of individual countries. Hazuma nods his head in understanding and agrees to have the guild purchase items for them. However, Faria reminds him that he needs to be registered as an adventurer to do so. Hazuma is shocked but realizes that he needs to explore dungeons in order to return to his previous world, so registering as an adventurer is necessary. As they approach the front gate of the Adventurers Guild, they see people chattering and enjoying themselves. Faria walks up to the desk girl and politely requests to register Hazuma as an adventurer. The desk girl asks if Hazuma is able to write, and Hazuma admits that he cannot. Faria interjects and vouches for Hazuma's strength, despite his inability to use magic. The others in the guild start laughing and making fun of Hazuma, calling him a young master and a swindler. Faria defends Hazuma's honor and gets into a heated argument with the others. One of the men grabs Faria by the arm, but Hazuma steps in and tells him to back off. The man challenges Hazuma to a fight, but before things escalate, the desk girl intervenes and calls for everyone to calm down. Just then, a deep voice booms from the stairs. "Hey, what are you lot doing?" A tall man descends the staircase and asks, "Where are the ones making a fuss in my guild?" It becomes clear that he is the leader of the guild, and he demands an explanation for the commotion. The situation is tense, but the leader's rival has put a stop to any potential violence. The guild master came down the stairs. As the guild master and Hazuma looked into each other's eyes, the guild master said, "I haven't seen your face before." Hazuma turned to Faria and asked, "Who is he?" Faria replied, "He's probably the guild master in charge here." The guild master turned to the other person and asked, "What happened?" The person replied, "We were just messing around a little bit." The guild master retorted, "It didn't seem that way though." The person added, acting all high, GH and mighty, without warning. The guild master kicked him hard and said, "This is my guild. Don't think you can just go around causing trouble." Then he turned to Hazuma and asked, "What? Is there something you would like to say?" The desk girl interrupted, "Guild master, these people here." The guild master quickly cut her off and said, "So you came to register as an adventurer, huh?" Hazuma replied, "Yes, but I have changed my mind after seeing you." The guild master said, "Wait, don't get so frustrated, I'll personally test you." They all headed to the training grounds. The other person and Faria were sitting in the crowd. Faria was fully confident that Hazuma would win. The guild master said to Hazuma, "Come on, we can begin at any time." Hazuma thought, "It would be best for me to stick to hand-to-hand combat. That's what I would like to say, but my opponent uses magic. Shall I get a feel of what he can do first?" The guild master threw fire towards Hazuma and then gently changed it to sand. But Hazuma dodged it. The guild master praised him. "Hey, you did well evading that," Hazuma thought. "What was that just now?" Faria was shocked to see that the guild master was a double element user. He was of level 58 who could use both earth and fire elements. She self-explained, "Adventurers are individuals born with magic power within them. In and of itself, magic power has no element associated with it. However, when manifested as magic, it is brought forth in the form of four possible elements. Many humans are only able to use fire. Magic, double element users that are able to utilize another element are pretty rare occurrences." A person sitting on the side said, "Oh, what a drag. He will go down soon." The guild master laughed and said, "What's wrong? This can't be considered a test if you just run around trying to evade." Hazuma said, "That's true." Hazuma thought, "His attacks are certainly flashy, but they are also quite monotonous. If I clad myself in magic power, I can increase my speed." Then he covered himself with red magic power and moved with flashy speed towards the guild master. Hazuma thought, "It will be a piece of cake to avoid getting hit." He jumped towards the guild master and pushed him back. The guild master stepped out of the ring line. Hazuma tried to punch him, but he stopped right before his face and the guild master lost. The people sitting outside the ring were confused as to how the guild master lost, and Faria was feeling proud. Hazuma said, "So what's the result of my assessment, Mr. Examiner?" The guild master became furious and said, "If you can't use magic, then I won't approve." Over your adventurer registration, the group outside the ring was growing restless with the guild master's behavior. "Stop messing around, guild master," one of them spoke up frustrated. But the guild master replied firmly, "In this guild I am the law. Plus I'll revoke your qualifications if you oppose me." Just then, a desk girl burst into the room, looking worried. "Something serious has occurred," she said urgently. The guild master turned to her and asked, What is it? She responded. A troll has broken free from the dungeon and he is rampaging through the city. The guild master's face turned pale as he realized the gravity of the situation. What did you say? A troll appeared in the city, and it was of level 37. The troll started rampaging and destroying houses. Some magic power guy came to stop the troll and started firing on it. Dust and smoke were everywhere, and they thought that they defeated it. But suddenly the troll's hand came from the smoke and caught a magic user in his hand and started moving forward. The girl magic user said, "Sure enough, this is an impossible endeavor." The other said, "If things go on like this, the city will be lately destroyed in the training area." The guild master was confused about the troll and said in confusion and anger, "What? I never heard of something like that happening before." Faria thought for a moment and said, "I know." The guild master said, "There seems to be precedence for this kind of calamity caused by dungeons growth. No way. Of all places, why is this happening in my city? More importantly, what are we going to do? Are we forming a subjugation party or are we evacuating?" Hazuma was walking out of the training area. Faria moved towards him and said, "Where are you going, Ryuji-sama?" He replied, "Of course. I am going to the site where that so-called troll has," Faria said. "Ah, wait for me, please. I am going too." Another person said, "Wait a second." The guild master and the others were seeing this all in shock. Hazuma got out of the hall and said to Faria, "What kind of monster is a troll?" She replied, "It is a humanoid monster with a large body. Other than that of an orc, it's physically strong but dim-witted. Also, it can't use magic. However, what's most troublesome about a troll is..." Suddenly they saw rocks coming. Meanwhile, some magic people were struggling with the troll. A magic girl cut off the troll's hand with her magic, but the troll regenerated it. Hazuma and Faria were seeing this. Faria said, "His regenerating power makes it difficult to deal with the troll. As long as its head isn't destroyed, it can continue to regenerate definitely. Inside a dungeon hole, one would trap him and then kill him. But here right now, there are no buildings taller than him," Hazuma thought. "But the troll is almost not covered by magic power. I could even deal damage with a normal attack, and I have 5 weapons summoning coins in store." And then Hazuma saw that the persons from the training hall were also there but hiding behind things. Hazuma said to them, "I am killing that thing. Give me a hand." They looked towards Hazuma with a weird face. Faria shouted, "Everyone come this way. Please evacuate in an orderly manner." One of the magic persons tried to distract the troll. The troll looked at him, and he teased the troll to get its attention. The troll started moving towards him and took him to the training hall where Hazuma was present. The troll ran towards them at full speed. The magic person said, "Here is the troll as you said." Hazuma said, "Leave the rest to me." Faria said, "But how are you planning to take the troll?" Hazuma stood facing towards the troll and had something shining in his hand. He shone the light at the troll's eye and the troll got back. In that split moment, Hazuma said, "Now," and something burst from the feet of the troll. Boom! After the explosion, the troll fell down to the ground, and everyone was shocked by what they had seen. Faria couldn't believe it. If it wasn't magic, then what was it? As the troll struggled to get back up, Hazuma was standing in front of him with a thread in his hand. "As if I'd let you do that," he said, rushing away from the troll. Hazuma then converted a coin into a hand grenade from his world and threw it towards the dragon's face. It exploded on impact without waiting. He threw another grenade towards the troll, causing another explosion. Then, he jumped into the air and converted his coin into a mini light machine gun. He started shooting at the troll's face, and the bullets tore it apart. The troll let out a blood-curdling scream and was unable to get up. A plus level up symbol appeared for Hazuma. Faria ran towards Hazuma and asked if he was hurt. "I'm fine." He replied. Other people in the area were amazed and asked Hazuma what he had just done. Was it not magic? They asked. Dude, won't you join our party? Furia thought to herself, as I thought, Ryuji-sama is not an ordinary person, nevertheless. Those weapons, they are all weapons I have never seen before. Who in the world is Ryuji-sama? The guild master suddenly appeared, and some people asked him to acknowledge Hazuma as an adventurer. However, the guild master refused and said, I saw it all. What's with all those weird weapons? I won't acknowledge you. This is my guild, and I have no adventurer qualification to give to someone who can't even use magic. The crowd of people began to argue with the guild master, telling him to stop being unreasonable. Suddenly, a man in a black coat appeared. Hazuma asked someone who he was, and they replied, he is the count that governs this area. The dressed person said to the guild master, I don't remember having given you authority to that extent. Though the guild master replied, but the guild management is my ... double quotes. The dressed person cut him off, and said, yes, but I entrusted you to carry out proper and just manage. The guild master got frustrated and begged the dressed person for forgiveness. The dressed person then moved towards Hazuma and said, excuse my rudeness. As the ruling lord, let me formally thank you, our savior, for rescuing this city. I will bear all responsibility for your adventure registration and allow it to proceed. Hazuma replied, that's a lifesaver, but I would like to make a correction about me being you, our savior. I was able to defeat the troll because I had everyone's cooperation, the dressed person said. How modest of you. Most adventurers put emphasis on their own merits and achievements. And he spoke to Faria, I now understand why you have been charmed by him. Faria replied, stop it please, the other person said. Do you know the count, little girl? The dressed person replied, no, nonsense, Faria is my daughter. Faria, Hazuma, and Faria's father were riding in a cart when Faria's father spoke up. A few days ago, I received a letter from my daughter and you were mentioned in it, he said. Hazuma remembered that they had stayed at an inn a few days ago and replied, that was the day we stayed at the inn, right? Faria's father nodded. Her letters are habitually reminiscent of clerical reports, but this one was an incredible long one. I was surprised. Faria interjected, father. Hazuma chimed in, she never mentioned anything about being noble. Faria's father then showed them Faria's stats window and revealed that her level was 20. You already promised you wouldn't say anything. Faria scolded her father. He replied, don't pout, and then showed his own stats window, revealing that he was level 54. He turned to Hazuma and asked, by the way, was it okay for you to leave behind those troll-dropped items and arrive here so quickly? If necessary, I can dispatch somebody to retrieve them. Hazuma replied, no, I want to travel as light as possible. I see, Faria's father said just as someone knocked on the door. Master, we will be reaching our destination soon, the person outside said. Faria's father greeted him and said, welcome to the Mirable Estate, Ryuji Dano. Hazuma excused himself and went to take a bath. As he walked to the dining hall after his shower, he thought about how much power he actually held, but his wealth appears to be the real deal. He mused when Faria arrived dressed up. She apologized to Ryuji-sama for keeping him waiting. Hazuma assumed the job field changes depending on the situation. If so, spies or assassins can easily take action too. Faria asked Ryuji if her outfit looked right, and he replied, not at all, I think it suits you. Faria was shocked, and her father asked Ryuji, let me reiterate my sincere gratitude for saving my daughter's life, and then suddenly asked him who he was. Hazuma revealed that he was not a native of this world and had come from another world. Faria and her dad were shocked to hear this. Hazuma explained that he wanted to return to his original world and conquer all the mythic ranked dungeons, although Faria thought this was unreasonable. Hazuma was determined to try, as his comrades were waiting for him. Faria's dad mentioned that the entrances to the mythic ranked dungeons were blocked by seals, and only a divine gate key could open them. The closest T-mythic ranked dungeon was located at the royal capital, and its divine gate key was said to be in the legendary ranked dungeon in the city of Ridham. Hazuma asked for Faria's dad's approval to explore the dungeon, and he agreed, but he asked Hazuma to save his territory by conquering the legendary ranked dungeon. Hazuma asked Faria's father what was going on, to which he replied that the dungeon core was running amok. Faria was shocked, and Hazuma asked what a dungeon core was. Faria explained that it was a manifestation of divine power, related to the administration of a dungeon. The core lay in the deepest part of the dungeon, constantly releasing power and causing the dungeon to develop further. Normally, adventurers would stunt the dungeon's growth by exterminating the monsters inside, depriving the sea or of its power. However, on rare occasions, the core goes haywire, and the dungeon continues to grow non-stop. Hazuma then asked if Faria's father meant that the legendary rank dungeon core of the city of Ridham was going haywire, to which he replied yes. If things continued like this, the city would be attacked by monsters flooding out from the dungeon. Faria's father requested that they destroy the dungeon's core and prevent this from ever happening. Hazuma gently agreed to the request then. Faria asked if it was okay with him. Hazuma replied that he also needed the gate key that was in the dungeon and that he would do what was necessary. Faria then offered to accompany him as his guide. Her father was shocked by her decision, but she insisted that she had been charmed by Ryuji-sama and that it was no use trying to stop her. Her father eventually agreed and left them to it. As they started moving forward, Hazuma noticed that Faria's job had changed again to adventurer. He asked her why she was an adventurer despite being the daughter of a noble. Faria replied that she wanted to become a knight, just like her father, who had served under the current monarch and saved the kingdom of Naxx from war. Now that the threat of war had passed, the citizens were exposed to the threat of dungeons, and she wished to save them from those at least. Hazuma then asked to ascertain their fighting strength before entering the dungeon and requested that Faria show him her magic. Faria thought for a moment and then used her sword to unleash an explosion that shattered a big rock into pieces. Hazuma was impressed by her destructive power and said that it would surely stand out among other adventurers. Faria apologized, saying that it took too much time to put the attack into motion and that she hadn't been able to use it so far. Hazuma reassured her that there was nothing to feel sorry for, and that if she possessed a power different from others, she should anticipate its use and come up with an adequate battle strategy. In accordance with that prediction, they eventually reached the entrance to the dungeon's deepest section, and Faria explained that they could get there using a magic teleportation formation. Hazuma didn't wait for her and jumped off the cliff into the deep hole. Faria shouted for him to wait, but Hazuma reached the bottom floor and saw level 21 orcs. Faria confirmed that they were monsters flooding out of the dungeon, and an attack from them would be dangerous. Hazuma suggested luring and killing them off one by one, but Faria explained that it would be dangerous to get noticed by other orcs. Hazuma suggested, well, in that case, he got an idea.